Yep.
I guess
Just
I
a
can
message saying, yeah, go ahead saying it's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
We're good to go, Tom.
Welcome to the T&E Committee. Today we are discussing the Executive's FY21 Budget Savings Plan regarding some transportation-related CIP amendments and some reduction in DOT and DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic has resulted in the need to reduce our budget, and while I wish we didn't have to make these reductions, I believe the cuts are a good balance for the overall budget. Ultimately won't have long-lasting health harmful impacts. So with that, are we starting with you, Keith?
Yeah, I can introduce things, then we'll go into the transportation side of things first and then the environmental piece second. But let me just mention a few things. First, this is part of the executive's savings plan that came over on July 6th. The plan totaled about $38.7 million on the operating side, including county government, Montgomery College, and HOC. It also included some amendments to the CIP, 6 of which we'll talk about today because they're transportation related. So we will deal with those. Just to get a sense of what we're looking at today, on the second page of my packet, I have a chart that shows on the operating side the cuts in DEP, transportation, and mass transit. Across all 3 of those, you have about $6.4 million in reductions. The vast majority of those are in mass transit and transportation, and then there's a smaller element in environmental protection that we'll talk about. The other thing I wanted to mention today, because this is a T&E committee meeting, the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission has also put together its own savings plan. It had an FY20 savings plan that was discussed briefly during the budget, but it's also subsequently put together an FY21 savings plan as well. And I've included some information regarding that in the packet, but no action by the committee or no recommendation is needed by the committee today on that, or for council action later this month. We will be discussing that plan in much more detail in the fall as we talk about WSSC's spending control limits process for FY22 and, of course, the current year, FY21. However, WSSC staff is here today if the T&E committee has any questions regarding that. I've put in some general information in the packet. Their FY20 savings plan was about $59.9 million, which is about 7% of their budget. Their FY21 savings plan is about $71.2 million, which represents about 8% of their budget. I will note the WSSC staff has indicated that these reductions are intended to be one-time emergency actions. They're not intended to be to repeat themselves in 22. If we do need to find savings in 22, we'll have to revisit that as part of the FY22 budget. So these were intended to get them through FY20 and FY21, given their potential revenue shortfall that they're seeing for similar reasons that we are experiencing revenue issues for county government. But if the committee has any questions regarding WSSC, there are some folks here that can answer those, but if not, we can just proceed with the rest of the county government discussion.
Let's do that. I meant to say at the beginning, Keith, I have a hard stop at 2:30.
Okay.
That's okay with everybody, but I think that'll be easy.
But I just wanted to do that first because it is actually a WSSC commission day, and so the budget staff are sort of doing 2 different meetings, so they can go off this call assuming there's no question. All right.
I think that's fine unless there's questions from my colleagues. It's very helpful information in the packet, and we're glad to see that kind of leadership from WSSC.
Okay. With that, I'll just move on to the next informational item, which is the FY21 General Fund Utilities. I also noted this in the packet. This was actually discussed as part of the Government Operations Committee meeting last Friday when they were looking at their end of the FY21 savings plan. And the executive is recommending about a $1.9 million reduction in the utilities NDA, and the General Operations Committee was supportive of that reduction. So I just want to let you know that because the NDA has more traditionally come to the T&E Committee for discussion, a lot of times because there's a clean energy and energy conservation component to it. And a lot of work going on in the Department of General Services regarding that, and the committee's been very interested in that over the years. but in the context of the savings, which are basically government or COVID-19 related, it did make more sense for the Government Operations Committee to look at that in this context. So, but I did want to note for the committee that that item was not missed, that it was covered just by Government Operations last Friday. And with that, I think the first thing we'll turn to are the transportation-related CIP amendments, which Dr. Orland will walk us through.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Most of these changes are actually non-substantive, so I'll go through them very quickly. The Elmhurst Parkway Bridge was a project that was finished actually last year. There was $110,000 that had been programmed in the project that was not needed, so that's the savings right there. The Highway Noise Abatement Project, there was $74,000 that had been programmed, but only $23,000 had been spent, so the savings of $51,000 there. There are three Purple Line related projects. These are all for county facilities that we're paying the state to do as part of the concessionaires agreement. The Bethesda Metro Station South Entrance, the Capitol Crescent Trail, and the Silver Spring Green Trail. Prior to the latest folderol about PLTC and PLTP pulling out, probably, actually DOT renegotiated the payment schedule for our reimbursing the state for these three projects, so that the amounts that we're paying per year in total would be the same, but it would be spread out over more years and would be considerably less in FY 20 and 21 to the tune of $19,723,000. So it's an actual savings in those 2 years, but we're adding that money obviously in the later years. But in terms of what we're trying to meet now in terms of a reduction in PAYGO, that contributes to that. There's no change in scope. There's no change to what the schedule would be by changing this. It's strictly a reimbursement schedule for paying the state back. And then finally, the only project which has some substantive element to it, which is Ride-On Bus Fleet. Now, in FY 21, the council approved in May money to buy 10 electric buses and 15 small 30-foot long diesel buses. These are all replacement buses, replacing older buses in the fleet. The executives recommend deferring not the 10 electric buses, but 10 of the 15 small diesel buses, the money associated with that, which is $4,770,000, and deferring that by 2 years to FY 23. This money also, by the way, is sort of a placeholder because separately or relatedly, the county has applied for federal funds to buy more electric buses, and if we get the federal grant, this money for the small diesel buses would be used as the county's match for that. Nevertheless, the money is being recommended to be delayed for 2 years. That would, if nothing else happens, would have to extend the life of 10 ride-on buses, which will be 12 years old in late 2021 to 14 years old. The optimal time to replace buses, diesel buses, is 12 years. So we're essentially extending the life of them by 2 more years, which is not great because they're going to be a little bit less reliable. It's going to require more maintenance. So it's not a totally costless exercise. And so my only recommendation here, that's a little different than the executive, is still a recommend approval, agreeing with his specific delays, but that the council should, if the situation fiscally allows for it, should consider adding back the $4,770,000 as part of the FY 22 budget as an amendment to the CIP, if by next winter, spring, we find that things are better. Now, if they're worse, then probably not. But in terms of the specific recommendation from the executive, I would recommend approval of all of these. Any questions on the CIP before I go to the operating budget?
One I had, Glenn, is I don't know if you said this, but is it clear from the revised reimbursement schedule how much of the Bethesda Metro South entrance is delayed till FY 22 and how much is beyond?
Right now, we don't have a changed. Well, what this is again is the delayed reimbursement schedule to the state. It doesn't necessarily reflect how fast those projects are going to be built.
I know.
The PDFs that are attached actually shows the change. I can look for it really quickly here. Bear with me a minute. scroll down to it.
We're very sensitive to the FY22 budget, as you know.
Yeah. Again, this is general obligation bond funding. So this the reason why these recommendations are being made is to reduce PAYGO.
Right.
So trying to find, here we go. All right, so I'm looking at it right now. The FY22, the amount would actually go up by about $6.3 million over what the council approved in May. FY23 goes up by about 5.5 million, FY24 by 1.1, and 21,000 FY26. So that's how the numbers pan out. The $19.7 million is reductions in FY20 and 21. And this was all negotiated, again, before the latest with the PLTC. So if the project really does get substantively delayed, the DOT may come back and renegotiate another changed reimbursement plan to do this. I forgot to mention, invites to this meeting were sent to Chris Conklin and Emma Willannon and Brady Goldsmith. I'm not sure if they're on the call.
You're here.
Okay, Chris, if you want to say something, go ahead. Do you want to comment on that?
No, I think you've covered it well. I mean, it's not related necessarily to the implementation of the project going forward. It's related to some slippage that's occurred up till now, and it may require us to rebalance other elements of the CIP in later years, as you've mentioned. But we think this is a good way to meet some of the savings needs.
Right. No, I understand. And if there is, as Glenn said, are substantive delays in the construction, or if we are under great stress on the FY22 budget, there's nothing that prevents us from going back and revisiting this, right? Trying to go push it back farther.
Correct.
Correct, other than we need to be somewhat tied to the actual implementation schedule of the purple line projects.
Mr. Hucker, our MOA with the state gives us the ability to kind of ask for a true up and reset the schedule based on actual construction. So our payments to date, we're getting ahead of the construction schedule or the construction percent complete. And that's why we ask for the true up and kind of reset the payment schedule. And we have the ability to do that going forward if we get out of whack. So if the concessionaire walks off the project and it goes into further delays, we have the ability to do this again.
Right. Okay, great. Moving, thanks.
Any other questions on the CIP? Okay. Now I'll go to the operating budget. There are reductions in proposed spending, in approved spending, both for the general fund as well as for the mass transit fund. The general fund, I'll run through them quickly. There's personnel lapse of a little over $707,000. We're going to be getting some kind of a more comprehensive response from OMB on all personnel lapse than all of the county government agencies. So we don't have specifics for you here today, but presumably that's forthcoming. The bridge program, we test for load bearing on bridges every year. We suspend that for 1 year, savings $150,000. These are not the safety inspections; those are unaffected. This is strictly just to see whether or not the loads that are allowed on bridges should be revised or not. Presumably, if the safety inspections find something that's really serious, it might lead to a load bearing change to what the loads would be allowed. That's unlikely. Tree maintenance is a reduction of 14%, $643,000. This includes this particular budget, and the operating budget is for individual trees or bushes being cut back because of safety reasons, possibly a dead tree which might fall on a car or something, dead limb. It's not the block tree pruning in neighborhoods. That's under the neighborhood tree, the tree preservation program in the CIP. This is the operating budget side, and that's a cut of 14%.
Glenn?
Yes.
If I could just stop you real quick. I presume, Mr. Chair, can we just jump in if we have a...
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Just going back real quick to the suspension bridge and the suspension of that testing for the next year. That is proactive measures, right? Not the reactive kind, because I know during the CIP we talked a lot about bridges and the unusual amount of rain over the last year, right? So if something were to happen with that, we would still have some maintenance and checkup, correct?
That's correct. This program is primarily to relax restrictions that are on bridges, to test to see whether they could carry more weight than the posted load or not.
Okay. Thank you. Just making sure.
And Chris, is that a national standard or something we're supposed to meet, that they get tested for that every year? That seems
I don't think
very,
it's a
seems
national
very
standard.
frequent.
I
How
don't
did we
think
come up with the idea of testing them every year for that function?
I don't think it's a national standard. It's just a desire to have them provide as much access for larger vehicles and moving vans, delivery, et cetera, as possible. So it's trying to maximize the efficiency of the system and avoid large vehicles having to divert to avoid these locations.
I guess I'm wondering, what's the likelihood their load-bearing capacity changes year to year?
It's not terribly likely unless there's been some sort of rehabilitation work done on that structure.
Okay.
Okay, the next is roadway patching. It's a reduction of $232,000, about 2% reduction. Sign materials, a 29% reduction of $80,000, and this would be not to replace those signs which are less critical. So public safety signs like stop signs or pedestrian warning signs, those types of things would still be replaced as needed. But other signs, such as maybe a street name sign which is faded, or parking signs which are not public safety related, would not be replaced as quickly. The review of fewer traffic signals for timing optimization, 28% reduction, $70,000. Again, periodically DOT goes out and looks at a number of signals to see whether or not the timing should be changed to make traffic flow more efficiently. And this would reduce the number of signals reviewed from about 90 a year to about 70 in FY21. With less traffic on the road, at least now, it's probably less critical than it would be in other years. Suspending aesthetic streetlight maintenance, $115,000, a 27% reduction in overall streetlight maintenance. So the poles won't be painted, there are handle covers that won't be replaced, and maybe other really more aesthetic items having to do with streetlights which are not going to be maintained in FY21. And finally, parking outside parking districts. This is a contract that's used to essentially to enforce residential parking restrictions, and more than anything else. There's administrative costs will be slightly reduced due to fewer tickets being issued. It's only a 4.6% reduction, so relatively minor. So those are the changes in the general fund, and I'm recommending approval of all of those, or concurrence with the executive on all those. If I go to the mass transit ones now, this is a question. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Reamer.
Thank you, sir. Director Conklin, can you just talk to us about the 14%, cut for the trees versus other funds being a little less?
I can. Most of our programs are safety related, so there's not a lot of opportunity to make reductions elsewhere. And this is one component of the overall program for tree maintenance. There's also CIP funding that Glenn had mentioned that's available for this. So it's not as large a reduction in the overall tree program as it is in this one line item. I think, Emil, I don't remember the percentage. Was it 4?
I think it was 6%. I think if you include the tree preservation program, it's a 6% reduction overall. But in terms of the operating budget aspect of tree maintenance, it's a 14%.
That's my recollection,
Sure.
too.
Hans, are you finished?
Yep.
Well, just on that, I have a concern about that. I don't know if Councilmember Reamer is asking because he does, but
Yeah.
Just that it digs the hole even deeper. What Chris, is our current backlog of for tree stump removal?
Well, I don't know it off the top of my head, but that's been a very slow program, and it's many
Years, right?
years. Yeah.
If memory serves, we're somewhere around 3 to 4 years right now.
Right. And periodically, we put more money into that budget when we can at the end of the year. Periodically, we get another savings plan from the executive and previous executive, and the hole gets deeper. And I get a lot of constituent concerns, questions about this, both street tree pruning and stump removal. And I've talked to constituents who have had their house infested with termites because we left the stump there for so long. And I think it's a little bit of an equity issue because richer households just pay the $2,000 or whatever and grind their own stump. but folks in my neighborhood, let stumps sit there for years. So I don't know. It's a small amount of money. I hate to just make a problem worse if it's something that we can avoid.
Would you propose a different cut in that and an increasing cut in something else, Mr. Hunter? Or, this would be time to do it.
Right. If I could get a second, I'd propose restoring that.
So not accepting the $643,000.
Yeah, we'll true this all up at the end of the process anyway, but we don't even know what our committee's going to accept versus other committees, and at this stage, I'd rather not make an existing problem worse.
Sure, I could go for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Just in one last question too about the aesthetic streetlight maintenance. I understand the rationale for it, but that just to avoid a lot of emails I know I'll get, existing projects like the ones in Long Branch and elsewhere, and I think downtown Silver Spring, that are already in the queue will continue to go forward, correct?
Yeah, this is more responsive maintenance to somebody thinking a pole needs to be painted or isn't in the aesthetic condition they'd want it. It's not related to the infill lighting or other activities that are funded in the CIP.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next area is the Mass Transit Fund. And the first cut is reflecting the deferral of the start of the US 29 flash service to September, $119,000 savings there. The Kids Ride Free program, the $780,000 reduction, what this is half of the payment that would go to WMATA for their foregone revenue on Metrobus for having kids ride free on Metrobus for a full year. WMATA has already announced that they're not going to be charging fares on Metrobus for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. So as a result, the executive is recommending reducing the amount set aside for the reimbursement by 50%. This brings up another related issue, which is ultimately what will happen with Ride-On. Typically, we've had the practice of charging the same thing or virtually the same thing on Ride-Ons we do on Metrobus for equity reasons, also for simplification for riders. Now, that's strictly a revenue side issue for the county, where there's no cost there. But that's something, as we get into September and October, there may be an idea that the county may want to go back and, if things improve, to start charging for Ride-On, but we need to talk about that because, again, that would, to the extent it's not related to Metrobus, doing the same as Metrobus, there's an equity-related issue there, too. So it's a combination.
Glenn, so just to reframe the Kids Ride Free, the reduction of 50%, that is naturally occurring savings because WMATA is not charging. So even with that reduction, all kids will still be able to ride free.
Right, all kids and adults ride free.
Everybody
rides free.
Well, then
Metrobus.
we should reframe this from a budget cut to a real savings because everybody will be able to ride free. But thank you for the clarification.
It is literally a cut. Well, not really. Again, the executive, what savings plans are is we don't reduce their appropriation. They still have the appropriation, but they've agreed not to spend that money, and that's the reason. Okay.
And if I could make one statement on the fare collection for Ride-On. We've made a commitment to have some physical separation between the bus operator and the fare box in place before we resume it. So we've begun that work to do that, but that will be a triggering event when we can start to consider whether to resume fare collection.
All right. Thank you. Motor fuel fund charges would be reduced by $1.9 million. That's, again, it's an effect of having, frankly, less Ride-On service actually being provided. So there's less fuel and less maintenance being provided. So there's less of a charge to the motor pool fund. The Call and Ride program is shown a reduction in use. You can see the table there in the packet. In March, April, and May, the ridership is down by 20, 30%, sometimes over 40%, actually 50% in April. And the estimate here is over the course of FY21, it'll be a net of 18% reduction in the amount of, in the demand for acquiring coupons. Remember what happens here is people of low income and are disabled buy heavily discounted coupons for their rides, but a lot fewer people are doing that now. So this recognizes that. The Fair Share program, the council budgeted $500,000. This is the program to essentially incentivize employers to get their people to telecommute, as well as to take transit. And guess what? They're doing that now, at least the telecommuting part. And so the estimate is that only half of that money will be needed in FY21. And finally, just like I said, in the general fund, there are personnel savings due to less ride-on service of $353,000, and we're going to get, again, as part of the comprehensive review from OMB, response on that. And so that wraps it up for transportation. So what I heard was basically you agree with the executive's recommendation for the CIP and the operating budget, except for the reduction in tree maintenance.
And one thought on the tree maintenance, just wanted to confirm that 14% reduction is somewhat arbitrary. It's not for a specific level of service. So if the council came back and said, well, we can afford to save half of that, or is that feasible here? Is there a magic to this number?
Totally scalable, yes.
Okay, so just as information to the committee, we have no idea where we're going to end up on the 28th, but just as an FYI, if the cut could be reduced, that would also be possible as well, as opposed to a yes/no type of question.
Right.
Right. But it's germane to the answer we give to constituents, right, who call 311 and say, my tree is about to fall in my house, and we tell them, you have to wait till 2022, right? Okay. Right.
If it's hazardous, it gets addressed.
Yeah. I agree. I know. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Over to Keith.
Are you done? Okay, moving on to environmental protection. For the DEP budget, and we're talking about the general fund budget here, the executive is recommending a reduction of $173,553. This is a 5.2% reduction from the approved budget of $3.4 million. And all of the savings are assumed to come from the lapsing of currently vacant positions. So all the positions are vacant now. They would still all be filled with during FY21 if these cuts were taken, but they would be filled later than they otherwise would be. And that's where the savings is coming from. All of these positions are either partially or fully funded in the general fund. In fact, most of them actually do have funding elsewhere in DEP, such as Water Quality Protection Fund, Solid Waste. And that does weigh in on this a little bit too. That's why the savings don't appear as much for some of these positions, because they are only charged proportionally, or only a portion of their total cost is in the general fund. And that shows up on a chart I have on page 5 of the packet, where I show these 7 positions. I will say that there's also quite a variety in how long the positions have been vacant. Some were recently vacant, and some have been vacant for multiple years. And that's been a result of a number of issues. We've had, as Councilmember Hucker will know, a number of savings plans that have popped up over the last several years, and things have come, things have gone, come back, gone. We've also had a couple of DEP reorganizations that have occurred, and those have resulted in positions being revisited, reclassified, held vacant until they've decided what to do with them. That is the case with some of the positions here as well, where they are expected to be part of DEP's current organizational structure, which was recently revised, but they still have to go through some sort of HR process to get reclassified to where DEP wants them to be. So even with some of these positions, they would be lapsed at least a bit during FY21 anyway, but this is extending that period usually a few months to capture a little bit more savings. I did identify a couple of positions here in particular. A Program Manager 2 position for green building codes, that has been vacant since it was created. It was actually inspired by the prior T&E committee chair to be added during a number of initiatives that were generated regarding climate change and green buildings. And the position has remained vacant as it sort of bounced around during, as I mentioned, some of these savings plans and also some reorganizations. that position's 100% funded in the general fund. And so you see almost half of the savings for DEP is coming from lapsing that position for 3/4 of the year. So it would still be filled late in the year, but the expectation is that those savings would occur prior to that. There's also a senior financial specialist position, which just recently became vacant, that would also be filled. That's the next largest savings as part of that, and that would be filled about halfway through the year. So you're seeing each of these positions has a story to it. I did want to mention we do have the director of DEP here, as well as the deputy director that can speak to specifics here. But I will say, as Dr. Orland mentioned earlier, with the lapse in DOT, we are expecting obviously a broader position review occur by the executive. This would involve both additional information on lapse, but also potentially significant position reductions. We haven't heard anything about these particular positions being part of that, but they're vacant, and they are an obvious target for lapse as a quick way to find savings, and that's what we're seeing in a lot of different departments in the savings plan. But with that, I think and as staff, I'm comfortable with these reductions for now, and certainly as the budget comes up next year, if we're looking at a very difficult FY22 and some of these positions are still vacant, we can have another discussion about whether they should be lapsed further or abolished, or further reorganization. That can occur later, but in order to capture the savings now, staff is comfortable with this approach. And I will, I guess, turn it over to Mr. Ortiz or Ms. Bubar to answer any questions you may have about any specifics here.
Thanks, Keith. You did a great job. All things being equal, this is, I think, a sensible and pragmatic way to meet the reduction. We're blessed in the department that we benefit from enterprise fund. So I know that you have a packed agenda today, but happy to take any questions, unless Patty, you would like to add something.
No, I think Keith did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing I did want to note, and I note this at the end of the packet, is DEP's general fund workload is likely to increase. You're very familiar with the county's climate change efforts, which are accelerating in terms of the planning in 21 and beyond. Well, there'll be a lot of activities that will be pursued based on that planning work, and a lot of that would be coordinated in the general fund side of DEP. And then on the water quality protection side, we are expecting a draft permit from the Maryland Department of the Environment. It's been delayed and delayed and delayed, but eventually it is going to come out, and DEP is gearing up for the work it needs to do to meet that upcoming permit. And a number of these positions are at least partially funded in that fund as well. So unlike some areas of the government where you may think we may find some savings over time through reorganization, here I think on the general fund side and on the water quality side, we're certainly not seeing a reduction in workload. If anything, we're going to see more work in the next couple of years that some of these positions will be very important to achieve.
Right, as the public expects. Okay, any questions, gentlemen?
If I could go back to one thing I neglected to mention, it doesn't really relate to this specific item, but it's still a savings plan idea. You recall in April, I pointed out that the parking division, the parking lot district's budgets are in serious trouble because revenue's totally cratered, and we still have expenses to there in terms of the CIP and maintenance of the garages and lots. OMB and DOT are working on just a parking lot district, if you will, savings plan, which it made sense not to send it over with this one because it would be a little confusing as to, because this parking doesn't interact
Right.
with anything with CIP.
Right.
But hopefully that'll get sent over soon, perhaps even as early, we're hoping, knock on wood, in time to be introduced maybe on the 28th. And then we could have public hearing and deliberation on that in September. If not, it'll be probably later in September, early October. But that is an issue that really needs to be addressed.
Well, I could have asked this when DOT was here, but has DOT taken the efforts we discussed during the budget to reduce, hi Emil, to reduce operating costs of the parking garages? Because presumably lighting and cleaning of empty garages is as important as it was when they were full.
Mr. Hucker, we have updated the analysis based on updated revenue projections, looked at all the costs, went back based on the discussion that was held with the committee during the budget approval, looking at the capital projects, what we could defer. We've actually put together a plan. It's pending a meeting with the executive to look at those things as well as a number of other strategies that are necessary in some of the parking lot districts. Silver Spring, we're pretty good. Bethesda and Wheaton, we have some work to do. But we have not undertaken the capital work for that very reason.
Do we have any garages we could be closing?
We are not closing. I'm sorry, Chris.
We did do an evaluation of the opportunity to close or partial or full garages, and there aren't a lot of those opportunities given the way that they're used right now, but we have gone through and to understand what we would have to do that.
Okay. All right, thanks. Back to our regular.
Never a season shall pass without an extensive discussion of parking lot districts.
Just wouldn't be the same.
And water and sewer category changes.
Yeah.
Can I ask Adam about what's the I'm sad to lapse the program manager to green building codes position, and I realize the reasons for it and that it's never been filled, but what's the workload like for that? Are we receiving more work in green building codes?
Yeah, well, there's sort of two parallel things happening. One, as you know, the next level of benchmarking data is being collected. So we're entering our third year of data. It's we're still trying to get the kinks out of that. We're getting information in from thousands of businesses, and then there's hundreds that are still not reporting. So we're still working on getting data in and still growing that program so we get our idea of what energy usage is in the commercial sector. The parallel track is we're working with DPS, as I think you know, on issuing new green construction codes that are among the most progressive in the state. There's certainly a lot of competence in DPS to do so, but so that process is still moving forward. There's always urgency around this stuff, but I think we have enough to do to really begin to lay a foundation, in the green building area. So lapsing this for much of the year, 3/4 of the year, it's not ideal, but there's plenty to do. And when that person comes on board, we'll have a little bit more of a program underneath him or her.
Okay, but it will slow down the work, or it won't slow down the work?
Of course, more hands on deck is more work getting done. But there's plenty to do to get our data right and get the draft code issued, which the agencies are close to doing. So,
okay.
Nobody likes a cut, but we got plenty to do. We're going to be delivering a lot of material to you all to take a look at. So I think it's the best and a worst case scenario.
Okay. So we have these cuts before us reluctantly. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none. I guess we're good. Okay.
All right, so we'll assume that the committee is supportive of all of the reductions shown except for the tree maintenance, which we will reflect as a rejection of that reduction.
Great. Okay. Is that all our business for today?
That's it for this item, and that's the only item.
Right. Dr. Orland, anything else?
Wait, I do. It's not related, so if the chair will forgive me, but I'm sure he's also interested. Director Ortiz, MCPS and solar, the climate working group has recommendations around that. What do you have in motion? When do you expect we could, take that issue up here at the council?
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of momentum in this area. We have met with the schools, Adriana, myself, and other staff. We've had positive conversations with them, and we're continuing to develop that relationship more closely. Adriana or Stan would be in a better position to kind of give the day by day, but kind of from where I sit, I see more communication, and internally I've tasked staff with rebuilding a more consistent and formalized relationship with the schools, specifically on environmental protection. So there's momentum. Yeah, stay tuned, and I can have Adriana follow up with you because she would be a little more knowledgeable about the day-to-day.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can, since I have the microphone, Chairman Hucker, you mentioned the draft permit. We did receive just a few days ago the draft permit finally from MDE.
Oh, good.
So we can share that information with you and Keith. And Keith, I know you're waiting with bated breath. Sink your teeth into that. So don't worry, we'll give you plenty to chew on.
Yeah, it's going to be on the bestseller list. That's great. Long awaited.
Well, it's with EPA for comment, so I think they have 90 days to comment on it. So it's not final, but it's, yeah. And I don't know that it's public yet, but it's with EPA. But
How many acres?
1,800.
It's fairly consistent with what our budget request to you guys was. We're, kind of doing the analysis, but I think it is consistent with what we have been expecting.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Are we good, everyone? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thanks, Kate.
Yep.
To enjoy those faces.